we do a lot of things here at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Of course, we do our big jazz festival every September, and of course our Next Gen Festival. And one of the programs that we have is our Artist-in-Residence program, where we bring in a fantastic jazz artist and educator to work in our programs throughout the year. And we've been doing this program for many years, and this year is kind of special because with Joshua we have an artist that we feel a real kinship with because he's been with us, so to speak, for so many years. For you young students out there, back, I won't even say how many years ago, but way back in the day, as they say now, Josh was sitting out there just like you students are, and he came through our high school education program and was in our, not our Next Generation Jazz Orchestra, but back then we called it our high school all-star band. So we feel like he is truly one of us. He is a fantastic musician and a wonderful communicator and educator, and I think for all of you students out there, really the type of person for you to look to for mentorship and to really emulate. And we're just so pleased to have him with us this year. Would you please welcome Mr. Joshua Redman.
Thanks, Tim, for setting the bar real low for me right there. It is a great pleasure for me to be here, and to be back here at Monterey after, well, I've played the Monterey Jazz Festival, the one in September, a number of times, I think, but this is my first time back at the what do we call this now? The next new generation, the next generation, the next generation festival. This is my first time back here for 25 years, I think. I know I'm an old MF, right? I'm 42 years old, and I guess I was 17 my senior year here. So this festival brings back a lot of really strong and really powerful memories, because for me, this festival, Monterey, was I guess it was really a key, a seminal part of my early musical life, a really key part of my musical upbringing. I played in the Berkeley High Jazz Band for 3 years, from I guess 84 to 86. That's 3, right? Well, my arithmetic skills have gone down. 83, I guess, to 86. Started in 83, ended in 86. And for us at the time, Monterey was, you know, it was the thing that, the event that in certain ways, I think defined us as a band and as a team. You know, it was we looked forward to the Monterey Jazz Festival. That was the pinnacle of our year. That was the high point of the year. That was what we were always shooting for, always aiming for. It was kind of like our big game, or our Final Four. Although I guess there were more than at that time. There were only, I think, 10 high school bands from California, and now I guess there are a few more. It's grown a bit, but that was the thing that we I feel like we really organized the band around Monterey, around being good enough to get into Monterey and then to compete in Monterey, and hopefully to come away victorious. I think we did one year that I was there. But and all the other years sucked. No, they were great. For me, the memories that Monterey brings back, it's funny because you know, over the years, people always ask me, you know, what do I remember about the festival, and in a way, for me, it's been a little strange. The things I remember the most about Monterey are not so much the musical ones, you know, because for me at the time, it was really it was a social experience as much as it was a musical experience. For me, being in the Berkeley High Jazz Band was really about being part of a group, you know, and some of I made some of my closest and dearest friends during that time, and some of my best friends now are the ones that I made when I was in high school playing in the jazz band. At the time, I wasn't a serious musician, and music wasn't the focal point of my life, and I didn't see it as being. I didn't see it as being the thing that I would do. I didn't see it as being my career. I was kind of focused on other things. I was, in many ways, your prototypical nerd. I was really studious, really shy, really introverted, a really horrible athlete. But for me, you know, and I was really focused on academics in a lot of ways, because that was one thing that I was somewhat good at. And you know, I never thought that I was going to be a professional musician. But for me, being in the jazz band and going to festivals like Monterey and experiencing them, competing in them, and meeting, you know, playing with the band and meeting people in other bands, it was very much a social experience. And like I said, you know, being part of a team, being part of a community, and it was a way to kind of connect with people and belong and to have fun, always of the wholesome and legal variety. But you know, I remember like the drives down to Monterey, driving too fast down to Monterey, and hanging out on the beach, and you know, and the anticipation, the excitement before we went on stage. You know, I remember the social bonding aspects of it, more than the music itself. And for a long time, I kind of thought that was strange, because I mean, Monterey is a great music festival, and I was wondering why I didn't remember the music as much. But recently, I've thought a lot, well, not a lot, but I've thought some about what jazz really is and what it really means to me. And I think jazz and music, first and foremost, for me, they are social. You know, jazz is a social music. It's an emotional music. It's a music about expression and communication, and it's a music that's at its best when it's being played by groups, not by individuals, but by groups, by musicians who are listening to each other and communicating with each other and sharing something. And I think, you know, I mean, in a certain way, that those things should go without saying, and they are very, very obvious in a certain way, but they're also things which I think sometimes may get slightly overlooked or underemphasized these days. I mean, I hear and I see, you know, the jazz education, the system of jazz education has made so many great strides in over the past 25, 30 years. And I hear, you know, the young musicians coming up through that system today, they have so much together, you know, on an individual and on a technical level. The bar has been raised so high, and the standards are so high. I mean, kids are playing so great these days. But what sometimes I feel is I don't want to say it's missing, but what sometimes I feel isn't, I don't hear as much of is the real passion and the connection, not just the individual greatness and not just the objective technical brilliance, but the feeling when you hear musicians that they are communicating, that they are locked in together, that they are grooving, that they are invested, that they are, that they are making music together as a group. And so I think one of the things, I guess what I'm trying to say in a very, very, very long-winded way is one of the things that I learned, I think in my experience in high school and coming to festivals like this was the social importance of the music. And that's something that we always have to embrace and that we should always emphasize, that music is about communication and dialogue and expression and coming together and being there with other people, with other musicians, creating something together. So that's basically the one thing that I wanted to say as part of this so-called clinic. I also want to give a disclaimer that I'm not, Tim introduced me as a great jazz educator. I am nothing of the sort. I'm not a clinician. He also said that, I was one of you back there 25 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't think I was, because I don't think I ever went to any clinics. So I'm also a horrible role model, too. But, my experience coming up through music has been very, very atypical. And I didn't really come up through the jazz education system. I didn't go to music school. I never had private instructors. I never went to clinics or master classes. So whenever people ask me to come up and do these sorts of things, I try to tell them, you're picking the wrong guy. Because I've had a lot of great experiences in music, and I've learned quite a bit. But I often think that the best educators, the best clinicians, are the ones that that really have a very strong and clear and definite sense of what you should do. That can give you a real path, a real lesson plan of how to achieve your goals, how to be a great musician, how to be a better jazz musician. And my experience is really kind of just trial by fire and learning by doing. And sometimes I feel like the more I learn about music and the more I understand about music, the more questions I have, the fewer answers I have. And I'm constantly questioning myself. So I can't really give you a way or a path. But what I can do is, in my typically verbose, long-winded way, answer any questions that you might have. So at this point, I think I'll stop talking for a minute and maybe see if anybody does have any questions. And if you don't, then I'll keep talking. Yeah. What do I do with my practice time? I try to avoid it at all costs. No. My relationship with practice has been a very complex one over the years. And honestly, once again, horrible role model here. For the first 30 years of my life, I really tried to do everything I could to avoid practicing. I loved playing music, but practicing something that, just being by myself with my saxophone was just not a pleasant experience. And I feel like I tried to do everything I could to procrastinate with that and not deal with it. You know, I learned by putting myself in situations where I was playing music with musicians who were way over my head, way better than me. And that's still how I learn. That's how I mean, I have the good fortune of being able to lead some bands now, and the way I pick my band in large part is just find a bunch of musicians who are better than I am and pay them to play with me. But something happened when I turned 30. At a certain point, I think something clicked. I realized, first, hey, I'm a musician. Like, this is what I do. This is what I've been doing for the past 8 years, because I guess I turned professional when I was 22, and this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. This isn't a hobby anymore. This isn't just something that I'm doing while I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to go back to school or not. You know, this is what I love, and this is where my heart and soul and passion are, and this is my livelihood. And I think at that point, I finally got serious about music, you know, and I also realized that there are so many things, you know, I wasn't going to be able to escape my inadequacies just from running away from them, and I wasn't going to be able to. There were so many aspects of my musicianship, so many holes in my musicianship that I wasn't going to be able to fill in simply by playing with people, simply by playing concerts, playing jam sessions, whatever. I had to deal with the fundamentals, and just the fundamentals of playing the saxophone, and all the things that I kind of glossed over and didn't learn, you know, in the years prior. So at that point, I did start to practice, and you know, at that point, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time to practice because I was a professional musician. I was touring a lot, you know. So for me, at that point, you know, carving out an hour or two out of the day was huge. I mean, 2 hours was like a marathon, you know, for me, practice-wise. But I was able to do it and to commit to it when I was at home. When I was on the road, it was a little harder. But when I was at home, I tried to get in a couple hours a day. And the things that I was practicing at the time were, I mean, just the most basic things imaginable. The things that you guys have probably been practicing, you know, since you came out of the womb. You know, just long tones and scales, and you know, I mean, just really basic building blocks of not even of jazz, but of music, because those were all the things that I didn't do growing up. So it was time for me to grow up musically. And now I have even less time. Kind of ironic or paradoxical, somewhat, that, you know, it seems like as I have the less, you know, as the less time that I have to practice in my life, the more desire I have to practice. So now I feel like I could practice 6-7 hours a day, but oh shucks, I just don't have those 6 or 7 hours. So it's going to have to be 20 minutes. But I do try to commit to practicing every day, and it's still a lot of very fundamental things. Did I answer your question? Sure. Not really, but okay. Yeah, ma'am. How do you get started if this is something you want to do? How do I get started if this is something I want to do? Or, oh, how do you get, okay. It's existential. How do what you're doing now, you know? Actually, get out of here, stop listening to me, and go practice. No, I think the way you get started is by getting started by playing music. That's what you're doing, right? What do you play? Oh, you sing. You play the voice. So you are you're singing, you're here, you're listening to other musicians, you're interacting with other musicians. That's what you do. You know, I feel like I'm really bad at trying to give people advice as to how to build a career, you know, or you know what to do if you want to be a professional musician, if that's what you're asking. Because my experience, I guess people took it really literally when I said get out of here and go practice. My experience is so atypical, and so much of what happened to me was this accident. You know, I had graduated from college and was on my way to law school. I moved to New York for what I thought was going to be a year off, and suddenly I found myself immersed in the music scene, playing with great musicians, and having opportunities to work with great musicians. And I was just really, really freaking lucky, you know. And that's not, you know, something to plan for. Oh, I think I'm just going to be really lucky. That's the way I'm going to succeed. But I think the wonderful thing about where you guys all are now is that, you know, you don't have to worry too much. I don't think you should overthink or overplan, you know, what you need to do in order to be successful, or to make a living, or to build a career out of this. I mean, this is the time, you know, if you're in middle school or high school or college, this is the time to, yes, be serious about music and listen as much as you can and play as much as you can, but also to have fun and to explore, and to explore all aspects of music. You know, the individual and technical aspects, and the fun, the social aspects of music, and being part of a band. You know, the rest will come, or it won't. You know, it may not come the way you want it to come. But one thing that I've found is that I think, you know, there are different types of success in music. But, you know, and some musicians are very, very fortunate, and very early on are able to make a living, and a decent living, playing exactly the music that they want to play, and others have to slog it out more and really pay their dues. You know, there's a lot more struggle that goes into trying to figure out how to build a professional life as a musician. But the one thing that I found is that it seems to me the musicians that are really in it for the music and for the love of the music, that are playing music not because they want to be successful or famous or popular or rich, is those musicians, over time, they do make a life out of music, and they do make a career out of it, and they are successful, and they're successful in the real way that you want to be successful, which is doing what you love to do, and having a community to do it with and for, and feeling fulfilled as an artist musically. Huh. Okay. Did everyone hear that? No. So the question was, the gentleman heard the band that played before, and was commenting on the guitarist and what great melodic phrasing he had, and he was wondering if it would be possible for me to demonstrate that, to take a melodic motif and build on it, and to give an example of great melodic phrasing. No. No. I can play, but I mean it's a I can play. I don't know if I can play well, but I can play. You know, for me, I think that's a great comment and a great thing to point out, because for me, melody is everything when it comes to constructing an improvisation. I feel like most, if not all, of my favorite improvisers, no matter what style they're playing in, whether it's really, really traditional and really inside the changes, or really far out there and abstract and free, they always have, there's always a lyrical quality. There's always a melodic. The melody is always, in a certain sense, first and foremost. And it may not always express itself to all listeners as something super melodic. But I think of an improviser like Ornette Coleman, for example, you know, who's known, you know, for being a great innovator, and also his music is known. Some people consider it less accessible, you know, more difficult, more jarring, more angular, more bracing. But for me, what the essence of Ornette's genius is that no matter how far out he takes it, in a sense, he's always playing melodies. You know, so that's something that I do strive for, and how to put together a saxophone and hold on to the mic at the same time. Not possible. Can't give a clinic in that. Sorry. So, what did you want me to do again, dude? Play some melodies. Okay. Well, one thing about playing melodies, I think, is that you have to. When I think about playing melodies, I think about singing. You know, I think about the fact that I can't sing. That's why I play the saxophone. But I feel like there's a certain there's a certain feeling that I need to have in order to express a melody, no matter what that melody is. And that, I guess the feeling is feeling. I mean, I think melodic phrasing, in a lot of ways, is about, first and foremost, it's about an emotional connection to what you're playing. You know, kind of opening yourself up to it, and you can't play a melody without being expressive. You're not really playing melodically, I feel. So one thing that can be interesting is to take well, maybe not that interesting, but one thing that I'm going to do is, I guess, you can take like a very stock melody, you know, something that isn't, that isn't necessarily that personal. I don't know, like the Star Spangled Banner or something like that. You know, I mean, I can play it. Where's the applause? Come on. No. You're smart. That sucked. But you know, you can take a very stock melody and make it your own. And making it your own doesn't necessarily mean, playing, a bunch of cool harmonic substitutions or embellishing on the melody a lot, but just thinking, for me as a saxophone player, thinking, okay, I'm not just going to play this melody, I'm going to sing the melody. I'm going to be the melody, and to find something personal. And finding something personal for me is kind of just opening up a little bit emotionally. I don't want to play the whole thing for you. No. But what I tried to do is not play like a bunch of jazz licks, which I could do, but just to try to play the same melody, but just have some kind of connection with it, So that's the first thing, I guess, about melodic phrasing is just connect with it. One thing that I like to do sometimes, to practice melody is, obviously in the context of playing a jazz improvisation and playing with other musicians, you're going to be playing melodies connected with, you're going to be playing in the context of a tune and in the context of changes. So you're constructing your melodies oftentimes over changes, over set harmonies. But one thing that I like to do sometimes when I practice is to just kind of start, playing melodically in the abstract, in the sense that I'm not trying to play over a tune or over a song or, over any kind of form, but just, kind of take an idea and see where it leads me, but always with some sort of, always thinking melodically, which might be what you wanted me to do in the first place. Yeah, he's nodding his head. Actually, I have never done this before, but it's one thing that I would like to do, so. So, I think the thing for me is, obviously, I kind of tried to start simple and then see where I was going, but You know, and I started to play things that might have been a little more, a little more arpeggiated and a little more, a little more complex technically, a little more with more harmonic ideas. But for me, the key is always still the melodic line, the singing lyrical quality always should be first and foremost. So that's why I'm always like a little bit leery of too much focus on material. You know, there's a lot of focus on material, I think, in jazz education today and in jazz literature. I guess that's kind of how it has to be. You know, you see all these books about, different phrases and patterns and ways of, things you can practice, devices you can practice. And all of that stuff, can be extremely beneficial. But it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any soul if it's not being governed and directed by your sense of melody, So that is one thing that I always try to keep in mind. And generally, that is something that I am the most frustrated about with my own playing. And I do get very frustrated with my own playing. I mean, that's one of the things that's kept me going over the years and been my engine for growth has been just this really heightened sense of self-criticism. But I love playing. I love the act of making music. But after I play, I'm always just thinking about how much I sucked. How much better I could have been. What I didn't do right. And almost invariably, what I feel I haven't done, where I start to go wrong when I'm improvising, is I lose sight of the melody, and I start just whatever. I'm trying to find a non-lewd way of describing it, but just kind of going off, and going off track and just kind of not, what I'm doing no longer has musical meaning because it doesn't have melodic integrity. It's just just playing notes and running the fingers around the horn and just BSing. Yeah. How many of those ideas that I just played right now do I think that I've played already? Actually, that's a tune that I wrote a couple days ago. I planted my man in the audience so that he would ask the question. No, that's okay. The answer I would like to give you, and that I half believe in, is none of them. In the sense that I really had no idea until I put the horn to my lips what I was going to play, and I never felt like I was playing something that I had played before. That's the feeling that I strive for in improvisation. I strive for this feeling that I'm truly in the moment, creating creating completely anew out of nothing. I strive for this feeling of pure improvisation, in that that I have no agenda, and that I'm not trying to demonstrate anything or play any material that I've worked out beforehand. That's what I strive for. That's the feeling. That's the attitude. Now, in a way, that's all an illusion, because probably every single thing that I played, that you just heard me play, I've played thousands of times before. Probably. In fact, definitely. It's like, are you really going to play anything new that you've never played before? I guess chances are the less you've played, the greater the chance that you'll play something new is, But you get to be 42 years old, I don't know. But it's the way in which you play it, and the way in which you put those ideas together. You know, it's and once again, it's the attitude. Even if it's an illusion, it's still the attitude that I strive for, and still the quality that I respond to the most when I listen to other improvisers, the improvisers that I love the most. Oftentimes, even if you know they've played those ideas before, there's still that feeling of discovering exploration and being fresh, being in the moment. I mean, that's why for me, Sonny Rollins is one of my greatest models as an improviser, because for me, especially Sonny Rollins, from everything he did from I guess 1950 until the early 60s, especially in the 50s, like every solo. It's a work of art, and it got so much structural integrity, and he's always telling a story, but you always feel like he's creating these ideas out of thin air, and that's not Sonny Rollins, and that he's truly improvising in the moment, and so that's what I strive for. Yeah, in the back, yeah, with the red. Where do I get my confidence from? What? I feel that's a very interesting and very deep question. I feel like most of my life I've been plagued by a lack of confidence, especially at y'all's age, when I was a teenager, when I was younger. For me, the one area when I was younger that I had confidence in was music. Because I was really, really shy and really completely lacked confidence as in my social interactions, But music was where I could be confident and free and kind of feel strong and alive, and really say something. Over the years, I think I guess just in part by growing up, and in part by being in situations like these where I have to pretend like I know what I'm talking about in front of a bunch of people. I mean, I've had to develop a certain amount of personal confidence, but still I've always felt that music is where I've felt kind of the most natural and the most uninhibited, and maybe that's why I'm a musician. But I think it's very dangerous also to be too confident, especially in a music like jazz. Because jazz, jazz is should be the ultimate humbler. Is that a word? Well, maybe not. Yeah. I mean, jazz. It doesn't matter how long I've been doing this, how many concerts I play. There was a time when I was playing probably 250 concerts a year. Now it's maybe 150. I don't know. But and just when I start to think that maybe I've gotten okay, that maybe I can do this well, I'll have one of those gigs. And I remember just with my trio, just a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, we had this gig, and it just sucked. It was just such a bad gig. It was one of those gigs where everyone was playing badly, and everyone knew that they were playing badly, and because we knew we were playing badly, we just kept playing worse and worse, And it doesn't matter. I mean, between the three of us, we probably have 100 years. I don't know if the math works out, but let's just say 100 years. Let's say 250 years of experience playing music. But, we've been doing it, for our, I've been doing it for my entire adult life. They've been doing it probably seriously since they were 12 or 13. So we played so many gigs, played so much together. We were playing music we'd played before, but yet still, because we're improvising and because we have to create something new in the moment, and because the real content and the meaning of what we're doing is what we discover and how we hook up as a band in the moment. Still, none, in a certain way, all of all of that experience didn't really matter. We managed to still suck, and that's okay. I mean, it might not have been okay for the audience that night, but it was really, there was something really refreshing and invigorating about that, because it was humbling, and it did, it made me realize that I just, I gotta keep working. I gotta keep striving, and never let my guard down. I think improvisation is kind of jazz improvisation is the ultimate leveler in that respect. How do I create what? How do I create the improvisation? Oh man, okay. I'm going to leave that for the next clinician to answer. No. I mean, that's kind of the essence of jazz, right? That's the one thing you can't. It's like as a that's why these sorts of things tend to frustrate me so much, because that's the most important question. How do you create that improvisation? How do you improvise? And that's the one question that you just cannot answer, that no clinician can tell you. It's just it's like, how do you speak the English language? You can study English, you can have your little grammar trees or whatever. They probably don't even teach that stuff anymore, because you've got spell check and syntax check on your, but I remember we used to have to diagram sentences in English class and stuff like that. And I never learned how to diagram a sentence, but I kind of learned how to speak English, and so improvisation is something at once completely natural, and I mean, we're improvising all the time in every aspect of our lives. We don't walk around through our lives following some script that someone handed us, like this morning, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then when I'm, say hi to my wife, this is what I'm going to talk to her about, and when, we're always improvising. Improvising is the most natural thing in the world, and to me, it's also the most natural thing in the music, but yet, at the same time, it's also the least explainable, the most mystifying, and the most frustrating at times, because it's so seldom that you really are able to say exactly what it is that you're feeling and thinking at the moment. And jazz is, by its very nature, I guess, it's an imperfect art in that sense. When have you ever really played that perfect solo where you really said exactly what it was that you wanted to say? Yet each time, you step up to play, you're still striving for that, and that's what makes it fun, I think. Yeah. Are we? That's a good way to. Do I have time for more questions? No, we're done. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tim.
Joshua Redman, ladies and gentlemen. We're very happy to have him with us this year. He'll be back for our summer jazz camp this June, and of course at the Monterey Jazz Festival in September. So we'll take just a short pause and get set up